What is up, RavensFlock? Huge shout out for your support for the 410 Sports Talk. Chance and Glenn are the best in the business. They're killing it right now. They love talking Raven talk. Make sure you go subscribe to their channel. Let's go Ravens. Big trust.
Welcome in everyone to another episode of 410 Sports Talk. I'm Glenn Martin here with my co-host James Haskell and of course DK in the background. As you can see from the title, we are celebrating a homegrown Raven staying in town for quite some time. But before we get into it, take a second. If you like the content, consider giving us a like, but definitely hit the subscribe button so we can keep you up to date on all your Ravens news. Jimbo, man, the Ravens didn't waste a lot of time, right? They tag him just, what was it, the 10th? The 5th. That he gets the franchise tag just before the deadline. And here we are a mere 3 days later, and boom, they ink him to a long-term deal. So what was your initial thoughts when you saw that the deal was inked? And also, what the heck could have changed in these 3 days? Like, do you think the Ravens kind of gave in a little bit or the player gave in? What do you think?
Well, first of all, when I saw the contract, and I don't do this very often, but I did do one of these.
Oh, you patted your
I did do one of these because in our last show, I said they painted each other into a corner.
Yeah.
It's exactly what they did here, right? And so just to give a couple details on the deal, and I'll answer your question to what changed, in my opinion. So he gets a 4-year deal. He gets a $98 million deal as far as total contract value, but it includes a whopping $75.5 million in total guarantees, $53 million at signing, which is both record-breaking in the $75 million and the $53 at signing. And if I'm not mistaken, also the annual contract payout at $24 million is some sort of record somewhere as well. But the two that I know for sure are huge is the $75.5 and the $53 million at signing. So to me, two things happened. They bumped up the guarantees, and then they bumped up the at signing. Those are the two variables to me that they must have increased just enough. They were probably already 95% of the way there, gave it a little bump, made sure he broke records, and they called it good. And Glenn, I think this is an excellent deal for both sides because, if you look at it, one of the things I think is interesting now, these guys that are, if you look at an interior player like him, unless you're like Aaron Donald, which it's fair to say he's comparable, not saying he's Aaron Donald. I realize Aaron Donald is a surefire Hall of Famer and maybe the best defensive player of all time, but there are similarities. But these guys are generally, not all the time, generally like one big contract players.
Yeah.
And so giving them a lot of guaranteed money is very important to them. Not some like, if you think about it, what's his name? Even our middle linebacker, Roquan Smith's contract was $100 million, technically more. But the guaranteed money is important to these big boys up front. $75 million is huge. And I think it's great because I think it's a way for the Ravens to be able to manipulate the cap in a certain way that allows them to maintain, I'm speaking relatively here, some sort of flexibility while having him, Lamar, Roquan, and then other guys coming up, Mark as well, Marlon, other guys on the book. So all in all, I think this is an A+ deal for him and for the Ravens.
Yeah. It sends a message too, right? Like, when you're a teammate of his and you're a new player to the Ravens, you see if you play well, you get rewarded with a big long-term contract. We saw it with Lamar Jackson. Now Madubuike is the next guy in line. I think it just sends a great message to it. Look, if you play well, you will earn a big deal here. Oftentimes in Baltimore, we saw the Orioles oftentimes be like a feeder system to the big teams that could spend money. And no matter how good you played as an Oriole, you were ultimately going to be playing for the Red Sox, the Yankees, the Dodgers, one of the more, highly funded teams. And so it's really nice to see the Ravens keep their homegrown talent. And hopefully the Orioles will be too under new ownership here. But I did want to mention, while he doesn't break the per year record that Aaron Donald has set at 31.7 annually, he comes in at 24.5, which is second. So it's just crazy. That's that big of a drop from Aaron Donald. But he does set the record for the most money guaranteed at the position. 75.5 at that position is, $9 million more than Quinnen Williams got, $66 million most recently. And then also, it looks like he's passed, Daron Payne, Jeffrey Simmons, Aaron Donald, as far as that goes. So look, they showed a lot of love to him, a lot of respect. But I see a lot of people out there saying, well, Justin Madubuike, I'm not so sure this wasn't just a one-off. I've heard people say that you can't reward a guy for one big year. And I think what those fans are missing is just the trajectory of his career and what it's been. First season, just 1 sack in 2020. 2021, 2 sacks. 22, 5.5 sacks. And then this year, 13 sacks. It's pretty clear no matter what statistic you look at, he's going in one direction very steadily. There's no dips and dives. There's no plateauing. This is a steady rise. And there's no reason to think that this guy isn't going to continue to get better or certainly give you this level of talent, that he's already shown you. But I don't think we've seen the best of Madubuike, and I think that's exciting for Ravens fans. And also, when you build a defense, I think it's important to this town to build from, kind of the spine of that defense. And now when you look at that spine, Jimbo, I mean, you got Madubuike, you got Roquan Smith, and in the back end,
ridiculous.
You got Kyle Hamilton and Marcus Williams. I mean, that's a pretty darn good spine. And just look at the history of the Ravens. Ed Reed, Ray Lewis, Haloti Ngata. That's how they like to build, all 3 levels, having that difference maker, having that game changer type player. And I think they found one for the interior of their defensive line. Yeah,
no, you're right. And there's some other guys, of course, that are up on the horizon. I mean, we're talking about some of these homegrown guys. You talk about Kyle Hamilton and others. It just is exciting when you think about the defense and the core that we're forming, both offensively and defensively, to continue to consistently compete as a football team. I think the trajectory is important. I agree with you, Glenn. And I also think the availability, he's been relatively healthy throughout his career. And I think that made the Ravens feel more comfortable with the guaranteed numbers. Let's hopefully stay that way. But I'm excited. I mean, the kid's still young as a football player.
Sure.
He's entering the prime of his career. So from a value perspective, the Ravens have met that intersection between, player trajectory and dollars given, right? So it's not like they're overpaying a vet or anything like that. This is a guy that is
for a guy for what he's done.
Exactly.
They're paying
he's
for
got
what he's
so much out in front of him. Exactly. Yeah.
And Jimbo, I mean, how much do you think it helps with the cap situation? Remember, $22.6 million under the franchise tag. That put the Ravens way in the hole. And now just by signing him to this long-term deal, they cut that cap number from 22 down to, I believe, 11 or 12 is the projections, which gets them basically back to zero because they were $9.5 million in the red.
Yeah.
And with this savings, they're back to cap compliance, which we know by the 13th they had to be. Well, this move alone does that. Now, of course, there's more moves to follow when you consider they have to sign the rookie class. They still have to have a in-season buffer for those injuries and signings that happened in the season. And, of course, they still want to be active, I'm assuming, in free agency. So there's more moves to come. But just getting cap compliant with one move is pretty impressive.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And just sweeping, like you said, because of the massive cap hit that he would have been. So, yeah, it's great. And there's a couple of dominoes that we can, of course, talk about at a later date as we get closer to that cap compliant, day. And then, of course, free agency opening up. So it's exciting. It's exciting to see what the Ravens do. More than anything, man, shout out to Justin Madubuike for working his butt off, changing his family's family, and his family's family. That's just exciting stuff, man.
And EDC, for getting the deal done, not letting this drag out for months and months. You come to an agreement with a good player, you reward a player for all the effort that he's put in. And I think this looks good for the organization. And Eric DeCosta, I think, nailed another long-term contract here. But Jimbo, also want to point out, 5 Ravens made the PFF's ranking of the top 100 players this past season. Number 7, Lamar Jackson, signed through 2027. Number 26, Kyle Hamilton, signed through 2026. Number 53, Madubuike, now signed through 27. Number 67 was Roquan Smith, signed also through 2027. And finally, Linderbaum at number 97, he signed through 2026. So all of our our best players, according to PFF, are now under contract through at least 26, but most through 27.
And I also got to assume that if Mark's healthy, he's probably on that list, right? He just didn't have a healthy season, so you can add into that. And, I think of Zay Flowers as well, being an emerging rookie. Ooh. So, yeah, there's a lot of good things going. And look, I don't care. I think Justin Tucker deserves to be on that list.
If there's a list and there's a kicker position on that list, Jimbo,
he better be the first one.
I mean, what are we talking about?
Yeah. So, yeah, shout out to Justin Madubuike. And like you said, shout out to Eric DaCosta for getting this done. We're excited. Let us know what your guys' thoughts are in the comments below about the Madubuike deal. Are you for it? You against it? Ambivalent about it? Let us know all your comments below. Like Glenn said, if you're enjoying the content, consider subscribing. Certainly leave a like. And if you're on the road, check us out any of your audio platforms where you listen to your podcasts. But that's it for us, folks. We'll talk to you soon. Have a great night.